Bent to vibration, all the wisdom I'm chasing circles back to my inner station in space. And ultimate thrills all over the place. I taste the thrills of my chase to who to the choice. Instigate with my thoughts. You go cannot afford this full pace to adore us by bringing the chorus. All your demons words, your spirits adore us with grace. I dance and gentle desire. She calls me a gentle messiah. We fall in love to get higher. My pilots inspire when she breathes, release her my she's fire. Hermetic with a flow, let me spit that. Aesthetic with a show, let me kick that. Kinetic with a glow, let me hit that. Connect a little more, let me sit back. Yeah, deep into my Merkaba. If you can't fly, never heard of ya. Soaring high, my Merkaba. Gots to me, everybody heard of us. All cause of me, all cause of we. Magic manifest when we triple RC. Bringing to life everything we can see. Communicating everything we can be. Like, what can I be? All right, we are back. We were getting into education. We were finishing up how education is used to keep you ignorant to how the spirit actually works, and how when you as a space become aware, that awareness is fire, and then it collects as water, and this is why your soul is the water that gives your life meaning. And anytime you feel like your life doesn't have meaning, I promise it's because you're disconnected from your soul, which is not possible, because your heartbeat is a manifestation of your soul making your body matter. But you feel like you're disconnected from your soul. Thus, you feel depressed because you can't handle your own emotions. And I went through a lot of schooling in this world. I never once had a class that was about emotional intelligence, Jonathan. Never once. All the classes were about memorizing World War I, World War II, the Holocaust, the ancient world, Europe this, Europe that, Europe that, Europe that. But never once about my emotions. The one thing that wake me up and dictate how I interact with the rest of the world.
Yeah.
It shows where the system's intentions are, I think.
Yeah, there's a book, and I wish I could remember the author's name to do justice. I love to give people respect where respect is due. But he talked about the different forms of intelligence. And we worship or idolize and put on a pedestal the intellectual part of intelligence. Mm-hmm. But there's also music intelligence. There's also emotional intelligence. There's also body intelligence. The book, I think, according to this book, he described, I think, 12 different intelligence. And one isn't necessarily better than the next. I mean, it's just what we choose to put on a pedestal and say that this is the most valuable, right? Because just like money, we agree that it's valuable and it has value to it. But there are many different ways. Like one of my people that trained me, a guy from Thailand, he would always say, Jonathan, there's many different ways to skin a cat, right? When I was a chef. And it's like there's many different ways to do something. It's not just about reading, writing, and arithmetic. This is very important, don't get me wrong. But there are many other ways to come to conclusions and to understand the space or the universe around you.
Absolutely. Yeah. And then, of course, to take it deeper or whatever, fundamentally, no one can tell you why you were born except you. I'm pretty sure. Like, that's truly a personal journey that, like, all movies are low-key about, or all art is about, or all stories at their core are about some character figuring out why they were born, I think, in some way. So it's just like, this is the journey that you always set out for yourself as a spirit. If you were born being fully aware of how your life were going to go, it probably wouldn't go the same way. Like, you would get in your own way, you know, like people fight themselves all the time. So this is also where we're not here demonizing anyone who's asleep, because we're all asleep to certain things. Like, you can't be aware of everything. Like, your spirit is aware of everything. But when you experience your spirit, you can only be aware of the realm that you've chosen to make a body in. So now it's about, if you can separate your mind from your body and travel, use your Merkaba, Metatron's Merkaba, fly around, communicate with other spirits. Absolutely. That's how you expand your awareness. Know that you're a spirit and not get lost in this body. But at the same time, when you know that you made that body to be aware of the world you're in, then really it all becomes a game of what you choose to connect with. And this is what, again, brings us to the importance of your soul, and why it is such a shame that the education system in this world will put Peter Parker's soul in the newest Spider-Man movie based on Doctor Strange manipulating the entire masses to forget that he was Spider-Man. But at the same time, they're going to teach us that we're just meat sacks and our brains are creating our consciousness, and thus we're limited to everything after we're born. And that's the main issue, is viewing life backwards like that. When you feel like you started life after you were born, not that you chose to be born, that's only chaotic. You have no order in your life. This is, I'm pretty sure, why religions go so hard, right? Because they teach people that they were born into a chaotic world and now they need order that was placed in front of them, instead of teaching people how they chose from a place of order to be born into chaos, because that's how we can all communicate our idea of fairness and balance, right? And now humans are in a whole transformation of communicating about fairness and balance, because they're seeing that their idea of God is not holding up with the people who created their religions, I'm pretty sure. That's what we're talking about with Christianity and Judaism and Islam. Again, stolen from Zoroastrianism. Also, they can enslave humans with money, as we see in all levels of R.E.A.L M. And they use Jesus to justify the enslavement of indigenous peoples. That's basic facts that have built the slavery of white people. Like, white people are enslaved by the same people black people are enslaved by. It's all about teaching humans how to fight themselves so that these entities who burned down the Library of Alexandria, stole all that information, can make their secret societies and be in Rome, be in the Vatican, controlling everything, feeling like they're the world puppet masters because they can manipulate our minds through phones and TV and movies and all their technology that we've agreed to be enslaved and set up, all because whatever.
And I think you said something really good, that we agreed to be enslaved. I want to say first and foremost that I don't.
There's a balance to that, of course.
Yes, absolutely.
There's a balance to that.
I don't have any enemies whatsoever. The only enemy that I have is the inner me. And there's a African proverb that if you defeat the enemy within, the enemy without can do no harm. So what we're talking about, it needs to be addressed because it's literally the elephant in the room. It needs to be addressed. And we can't skip over this because some people might think it's negative, or some people might, say, hey, you're talking about this person or whatever. Again, whatever we're saying are just are things that are literally happening, things that have happened. And there are many documentations and many other sources that can back up what we are saying. It depends whether or not if you choose to look at it and to acknowledge it, or if you rather choose to put your head in the sand like an ostrich. But regardless, like what Buddha said, there are three things that cannot be hidden forever: the moon, the sun, and the truth. And this is a time. This is a time where the truth has to come out. It has to come out. So with this religious system we were talking about, I wanted to talk about how, I was talking about how our bodies, right, and how our bodies, we don't know our bodies, the very vessels that we're living in, that Mother Earth has gave us, that our mother has gave us, and nourishes us, right, in many different ways. How we don't know them, and what we have become. Okay, what we have become creatures that are constantly looking for pleasure. We have become creatures that are constantly looking for pleasure, and because of this, we choose to. We can't see what is happening around us. So we have something in our bodies called the 9 gates, based on yoga, and the gates are entry points, and the average human lives their life through these entry points. So I'll name them right now. You have
shout out Naruto. I don't know if you know Naruto with Rock Lee.
I know Naruto a little bit. My little brother used to watch it, but I didn't watch it too much.
Yeah. So, okay, go ahead. It's a show all about chakras and using your chakra to manifest nature from the inside to the outside, and how these ninjas do it in infinite ways. It's a very hard anime. There's a character named Rock Lee in there he can't use his chakra the same way everyone else can, but he can tap into his 9 gates to channel chi in a way no one else can.
Interesting.
Yeah,
I love anime.
absolutely. It's funny.
Okay.
Yeah, it's just great how, I mean, spirituality is used to quote unquote make money, but make sense, you know, make some dope ass art, basically, that we can be like, yeah, I see that in life. But it goes deep. Like, how deep can you go to see that in life?
Yeah, so we
For the
have these
9
nine
gates.
gates. Yeah, and I just say for the people listening, you have your 1, 2, your 2 ears, your 2 eyes, that's 4, your 2 nostrils, that's 6. You have this, that's 7. Then you have your reproductive organs, that's 8. And you have the other one where you defecate, your anus, and that's 9. So with these 9 gates are ways that you experience this reality around you. Of course, we have our 5 senses as well too, but these are gates, things that are going inside of you: the light, the sound, everything else, right? So we have become these creatures that are always looking to experience something through these 9 gates. If we knew that, and if we knew, you know, some other truths that I was speaking of earlier in the past video, we would know we would know that this program that we're living in, that I call realm, is fake. That it is how would you say it? It is fictitious. It is a false program. It is artificial intelligence in its most primal making. So we become lost in it. And education, okay? Education once again is knowing thyself. The question that everybody should ask themselves, because questions are important, right? Even if you look at the etymology
Questions
of a question,
power the soul.
it powers the soul. But even if you look at the etymology of a question, it is a quest, Quest. You're going on a quest. You're going on an expedition. You're going on a journey. You're going on a great adventure. So to ask questions, right? This is why in church you ask questions. Hey, don't question the word of God, right? You ask questions in high school. Why are you asking so many questions, right? But children naturally
Send you on
curious.
a mental quest.
On
It's
the-
that
exactly.
mental traveling. Literally,
Absolutely.
going on questions. You gotta go on a quest to learn who you are. Go out of your space.
And
In
who asked the
realms. Who are you in realms and realities?
This is true. But who asks the most questions? It's children.
Children.
Children ask the most questions because they haven't been as brainwashed as everybody else. And adults, so why you ask so many questions, Jimmy? Why is this sky blue? Why is this that? Why is this that?
They're
Why
full
is
of
this
soul.
that? Yeah, exactly. So education, ladies and gentlemen, education is getting to know yourself. Once you know yourself, you know everything else. If you want to know humanity, study yourself. If you want to know mathematics, study yourself. If you want to know history, study yourself. If you want to know science, study yourself. If you want to know God, study yourself.
Absolutely.
You are the book of life, and the minute you read your own book, you have the most brilliant, the most how you say it, elite, the best education in the entire universe, because you are a universe, and you don't need to go to a university. All you need to do is get to know yourself.
Mad fire.
Yeah.
That was infinitely fire. And the worst part of the education system would be that. I would say the second worst part. The first worst part of the education system is that it teaches you to not know yourself. And it teaches you to know everything that's not you, so that you can identify as a bunch of things that aren't you, right? And this is where war is still so powerful, because people don't know themselves, they identify as what they were told, and then you get nationalism and racism overall. I'll just leave it there with those 2 words. The second worst thing from that point is how when you are lost in not knowing yourself, it's very easy to become addicted to everything that makes you feel like you know who you are. And this is where you get like real Bible thumpers, or like crusaders, colonizers in general, because they feel like they know Jesus so much, you can't possibly go your life without knowing him. If you try to go your life without knowing Jesus, that's a sin. And because I know Jesus more than you, it's my responsibility to steal your land and build a system that enslaves your family. Because you need to know Jesus. Well, here I am. I'm speaking English. Chase Calloway knows Jesus, and we're talking about it. It's R.E.A.L.M. All right, it's all this. It's literally just Jews who want to expand throughout the world by eating indigenous people. And we see it in all levels of reality when we actually just look at food, even. I mean, we already see it with religion. It's about sacrificing a man who fasted instead of fasting yourself. Then we see it in education. It's not about knowing yourself and feeling clear. It's about knowing everything outside of yourself and feeling like you need to go to more school, go to more debt so you can get more information that was made up. Like a lot of it is just made up to make money out of your mind. This is where we then get agriculture, the
Absolutely.
absolutely, your food. And agriculture is basically addiction, because I'm pretty sure everyone is addicted to consuming. Every human on this world, in some way, you're either addicted to consuming food or internet content or information, or God damn it, if you really want to act like you're a saint, I know you're addicted to breathing. Because really, it's just about developing a chemical dependency with the structure that's allowing you to feel like your life is real and that your life means something. Like right now, I have a choice whether I feel like what I'm doing matters or not. I could immediately like get into some weird bag in my space, be like, what I'm doing doesn't matter. And now all of a sudden, that's a totally different emotion that is going to channel into my body differently. And it's going to create my reality entirely differently. But regardless of how I feel, I am using chemical reactions to communicate through this body. So the chemicals that you introduce into your body, bro, very important, right? We know we need air. We know we need water. We have basic chemicals. Everything you drink is made out of water. But when we actually look at the agriculture of the United States, it seems like it's quite atrocious. No, Jonathan?
Yeah, it is quite atrocious. So there's many ways that we can begin to dive into this and pick this apart. And I
It
guess
seems like, let's start with, it seems that it's built to create addiction.
yeah,
How do you feel like in all the ways, bigger than sugar, right? Like cover sugar, of course, to get the ground basis, because that's huge. But there's so many more ways in which our food is manipulated. This is truly your field. Being able to see how the food is manipulated to make us as addicted to it as possible. And you're aware of how the scientists do deep things behind closed doors to make our food taste the way it tastes.
yeah. So those who I gave a little bit of history, a little bit more history. Every job that I have had in my life, over 30 something jobs, have something had to do with the food industry. The only ones that haven't was when I had a job at Six Flags, and there was another ride park when I was like 17. Other than that, every job was in the restaurant, from serving to being a manager, to being a dishwasher, to being a chef, to being a hostess, to being a salad boy person, to being a busser. You name it, I have done it. A front of the house manager, back of the house manager, a bar manager. You know, I was a private chef. I had my own private chef company that I called Loved, Living All Vegetables Every Day. I'm big on acronyms. Anybody can take that out there. I'm not doing it anymore. I don't care. And then I also went to Job Corps for culinary, and then also I started being in the industry when I was 12 years old. And then I went to the Art Institute of Philadelphia, and I went to the Art Institute of Atlanta, all for culinary. So I have a lot of culinary experience, and I've also cooked in Napa, California, all the way down to, Philadelphia, like all across the United States, in Atlanta, Georgia. So my experience, just how I maintain a lifestyle and how I supported, those around me by serving others this thing of so-called food. And I do so-called food because what we know of food as nowadays is not really food. Food is nowadays it's a drug. It's a drug. And this is the reason why when you eat, you get something called dopamine, because food is a drug like dope. So let's just start to actually look first and foremost at the United States, but focus on this, since most of the viewers are probably in the United States. Is that in the early 1900s, a lot happened at this time. I believe it was 1912. This was when agency was put in place in the United States.
And this does
And
apply to everywhere that Europe has colonized. It's just that the United States is the most pure example of the European dream of manifesting the new world that banks have us supporting right now.
Yeah, so I'm keen of acronyms, and
Absolutely.
when I think about this race, whether if you call it race like a person, or whether if you call it race like to get to the finish race, there are four main groups that are involved, and we're really starting to see that right now. And race stands for Russia, the A stands for America, the C stands for China, and the E stands for Europe.
Nice.
So a race
Wow.
to take over the world.
That's fine.
So yeah. So back in the early 1900s, it could have been 1912. I'm paraphrasing, but it's early 1900s. There was an agency that was put into place in the United States, and I can't recall the name, but go ahead and do your research. It's out there, ladies and gentlemen. And this agency was responsible for making the food pyramid. So this pyramid effectively has taught people, has conditioned people what to eat. Eat this much oil and sugar. Eat 5 to 7 servings of meats a day, and 1 serving of meat is considered 5.5 ounces. Okay, we know that burgers are 8 ounces. We know that sirloin steaks and ribeyes 12 ounces, whatever. Eat this many servings of meat a day. Eat this many servings of grains, of fruits, of vegetables, of dairy, of fish, etc., etc., etc. And people, because of their ignorance, they followed this blindly, and they incorporated it inside of their lifestyle, and this became the staple, and this became the foundation of how we eat. That we eat by times, okay, and instead of seasons, or instead of when you feel like you need something.
Your
to eat.
soul.
And then what happened is that school systems, because this was an agency that was put here by the United States, school systems adopted this, jail systems adopted this, every hospitals adopted this, and they all supported it. So every single government instruction now supports this pyramid, right? The pyramid scheme of food. And
Right.
people, again, have felt for it. So food, by definition, is something that gives substance to the body and
Right.
gives nutrition to the body. By that very definition, we are not eating food, ladies and gentlemen. What we're eating is we're eating something that I call food-like items, or food-like products, because it does not add nutrition to the body. In fact, many of it actually takes away the nutrition. So if you look at, let's say, people know of something called a French, a roast beef au jus. It would be a piece of bread. It would be some Swiss cheese in it, maybe some horseradish, and then it would be some meat, some roast beef, and on the side of it would be au jus. And au jus in French means the juice of. That's how you translate au jus, right, into English, the juice of. If you look at the word restaurant, RESTAURANT, the rant, the RUSTAU, the AU is actually means of, just like au jus, right? AU means of, the juice of. So au jus means of. So restaurant in French, which is a French word which a lot of people don't recognize, restaurants means to restore of energy. It literally translates into restore of energy. So when we go to restaurants, we should be restoring our energy.
Right, rejuvenated.
Exactly. And being in culinary school, we get into the history. It's a guy by the name of Agafia. I think that's how you pronounce his name. He was literally one of the first ones that opened up a restaurant, and he's considered the godfather of culinary. He designed the uniforms that we put on, the chef coats, which I have many of, that are kind of like military, like if you actually look at them. And then also the ranks. You have the executive chef. You have the sous chef. Sous just means under, like sous vide, right? So you have the sous chef. Then you have the first cook, the second cook, the garde manger, the pantry cook, the so on and so forth, the prep cook, the dishwasher, whatever. It's a hierarchy, right? So going back into food, right? That we're not really eating food. That is really
Food
like
light.
Like the restaurants are literally taking your energy. And how can I make this claim and say that they are taking your energies? And I guess I'll make it nicely and say 90% or 95% of the restaurants are taking your energy. Because let's say that the average human being has, for conversational sakes, has 10% of energy. And when they eat something, they should get 15%. Okay? But what happens is that the human being has 10% of energy, and when they eat something, now they have 9% of energy. Because the foods that we're eating, they're actually taking energy away from us because it requires energy or currency to process this food in our system.
Right.
So your digestive system takes up a shitload of energy, and your brain, regardless of what you're doing, automatically takes up 20% of your energy. So this is why when people eat big meals, there's something called food coma. Some people call it the itis.
The itis.
Itis, thank you. And then other people just, they collapse. They collapse. You don't have enough energy in your body to operate your eyes and move around and do whatever. So what happens is you actually, fall out and go to sleep, and the body recharges itself naturally. Now, a lot of people, because of the society that we live in, and it's a go, 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 and they're so addicted to movement, and people not knowing that actual stillness is the mother of movement, just like silence is the mother of noise, right? But people want to move so much, so they drink a rock star, or they drink some other type of energy supplement. They take that, and now what's happening is that the energy is pulling the substance, the caffeine, the whatever, is pulling energy from organs in your body. So they're pulling it from your heart, they're pulling it from your spleen, from your liver, different organs in your body, and they're borrowing energy. And this is why the lifespan is decreased dramatically. So people think that they are effectively feeding themselves because protein, because that's what they were taught in educational, right? Which was right behind or right before agriculture, right? I'm getting my proper amounts of fat. I'm getting 2,500 calories a day.
Literally.
I'm getting all
the
of
calorie
this stuff.
science.
I should be healthy. I don't understand what's going on.
Insane.
What's going on? And what's going on is that you don't know thyself. You don't know thyself, because if you knew yourself, you would know that you are energy. So this is why I interviewed a guy on my channel, Seven Circles, R.E.A.L.M, who's something that we call a breatharian, who has not consumed water and food in over 2 years, and he's healthier than the average 50-year-old.
Absolutely.
And his body looks great. I'm talking about cut up and everything. He's not he's not lacking energy or anything of that nature. So we can break this down a whole lot. This is actually, like my main, I'm not going to say my main, but I have so much life experience when it comes to the agriculture and the food industry, that most people are so oblivious to what is actually happening behind the scenes, because they're ignorant. They don't know.
Yep. Right.
Yeah, so, I don't know if you have any questions. If not, I can keep going. So, yeah.
Well, yeah, I mean, food is drugs in disguise. That's infinitely deep. Can you give us some examples on how you have seen the lengths in which the people who design R.E.A.L.M go to manufacture the food to somehow be as addictive yet unhealthy as possible?
Yeah, so I'm not going to say that food is addictive, because I would say that food like items are addictive, because I don't see people wigging out. oh, I got to get an orange, man. Just give me another one. You know, oh, I got to get an apple. When people eat real food, which is, good for the body, or the body craves it, a kiwi or something like that, I don't ever see people overeating. I don't see people having addictions. They have addictions to these products that are made up and that have a shelf life and that aren't picked off of the tree. So it's a really subtle difference because of the way that we were programmed to think about what is food and what isn't food. But it's a subtle difference, but it's very important to know the distinction between food and food-like items. So so there are many ways that corporations in the United States.
Well, before you get into that, then what is the main distinction between food and food-like items, besides, of course, food coming from nature and a food-like item coming from a factory that took something from nature and transformed it with fiery metallic practices?
Thank you. I'm very happy you asked that question. So I've been talking a lot in the previous recordings that we did about chi and energy and life force. Food should have chi, energy, and life force. It's a medium. It's a medium of capturing this chi, this life force. And when you take a grape and you dry it out and you have a raisin, that life force is still inside of the grape, inside of the raisin. If I buy a squash and I take that squash and then open it up and take the seeds out and plant them in my backyard, I'm gonna grow a plant effectively. If I take black-eyed peas and I soak them in water for 3 days and pour the water out and then put them in a place in my cabinet, they're going to start to sprout. And I've done this with lentils. I've done this with many other things. The food is alive. The energy is inside of there, right? If you take celery or lettuce and you have the little thing at the bottom, you know, where you like take it out the what do you call it, the stem. If you put that in water after you ate most of the lettuce will begin to grow itself over again. I have 5 pineapples on my dining room table right now. There are over water, and there is a whole root system that has grown, because most people throw away the top of the pineapple, but now I'm growing pineapples literally, and I have 5 or 6 of them, and they have a root system because food is alive and we are electrical beings. This is why you could take zinc, right? And you could take copper and you could stick it in a lemon, and you could put a light emitting diode, which is also known as a LED, and you can light that up. You could do the same thing with the potato and also other things, because food has electricity and we have electricity. We have over 37 trillion cells in our body, and each cell has 0.07 volts of electricity. That means 2 cells in our body equals the same amount of voltage as a AA battery. So that's a tremendous amount of power that we harness, but most people don't realize how much power we actually have. So to tie this into, what is food? Food is energy. Food is life. And so an oatmeal raisin cookie that's been cooked in the oven at 350 degrees, even though I still eat them, was one of my low points, right? That by definition is not food. It's a food-like item. When you have something like pizza, you got the gooey cheese on there, which I haven't had a good slice in years, man. It was one of my favorite foods, man. You know, mushrooms and everything on it, some good sauce, and from a New York slice, right? When you eat that, that's not food. You know, it's to the point now where my body has been refined on so many levels that if I eat some of this stuff that I used to eat, I would throw up. And I've tried it. I'm like, man, I can't even enjoy eggplant parmesan anymore. Like, it's not a food item. So a real food is food that has life force in it. And you can do this by fresh fruits. You can do this by buying a dehydrator, which I have, and you can preserve the life force inside of it. You can have your seeds and whatever and bring them back and sprout your food. But this is real food. Everything else is not food. So, you know, when people eat a piece of dead meat and they cook it and whatever, and, you know, people are eating many other things that aren't alive, it's not food. It's taken away from your energy, and a restaurant, by definition, is to restore of energy.
Right. Absolutely. Literally. Yeah. Food is weaponized to drain our energy based on the chemicals and literally just the fact that it's so far from water. Even that's why we see water fastings like healthy, right? Like the healthiest foods are water based. like put simply. I mean, meat is kind of water based, but like really, no, we're talking about actual plant water based foods, not something based in, yeah, toxic substance. Like even gummies, right? Like just thinking of all of the fruit snacks that kids eat growing up. It's like very nefarious. And like even baby food has so much heavy metals in it. It's insane. The FDA is insane. They let so much stuff slide. Well, we're about to be right back to go harder on the FDA and how agriculture is set up to kill you slowly so that you can fuel the medical system.